In a world where our friends call us not us united and our enemies call us midnight rain, two dudes must learn to podcast as the Fremen do in order to survive the desert planet of endless content. We don't care how many enemies we have. They'll never be prepared for us. Not us united. Alright, well, I'm excited for you guys to talk while I watch this.
We have the Two Towers playing in the background.
Some call it the Two Towers, others call it the greatest movie of 2002.
Spider-Man 2 came out, right?
Oh, you're right.
I'm not saying it's
still,
better.
But some people still call it the best movie of 2002.
That's what we're going to decide here today. And that's why you join us.
Spider-Man 2 came out in 2002.
Did it? It was 2003.
I just love how,
I think
like,
it's 2003.
You can totally compare those movies.
You literally
Yeah.
have tattooed Lord of the Rings on your body, and you're like, wait a second, didn't Spider-Man 2 come out that year?
I'm just saying for your benefit, because you're a spider guy.
Oh, that's right. They do call me the Spiderling sometimes.
Well, anyways, today we're going to decide if Spider-Man 2 is better or the Two Towers is better, which literally has two twice in its name. What? Actually, how do you spell towers? If you change a little bit of the letters around in towers, it has two twice.
It could be, yeah.
It could be twice. Anyways, this is Not As United, a podcast that likes to view cinema a little differently, including the spelling of the words that are in the title of the movie.
Man, sometimes I'm like, maybe this is my week that I have to like go and you'll like give me the cue, but man, you're just like all business.
Yeah.
And I love it. Thank you for just bearing that burden.
Thank you for bearing with me.
It's the half calf.
It's a half calf.
Yeah.
We are all currently half caffeinated, some more than others. As that voice may have indicated, we are joined once again by a special guest, a returning guest, our very first guest, I believe.
I think so.
I think you are our very first guest.
I was the first one.
Yeah.
And then I challenged myself to walk to Mordor and back, and now I'm back.
Now he's back. Ladies and gentlemen,
Took
he
him
threw the
almost 2
ring.
years.
A
lot of twos tonight.
Yeah, twos. It's a toothful.
2 years, Two Towers. And you know what? You guys remind me of the Two Towers because when I look at you guys, all I think about is fellowship.
Wow.
And how you guys have been there for me.
That's incredible.
Whenever I've needed you.
Wow. I thought you were just going to say because we're tall.
Also that.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to say first, but I was like, this probably would make more sense.
That's a better analogy than what I was going to say.
Everyone needs a little fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think these movies are so endearing, because in the end, it's all about who you go on the adventures with.
That's right.
Not the adventure
That's
itself.
right.
But the adventure's pretty dope, so let's get talking.
So yes, where we left off, we had the Fellowship. We talked about it. We enjoyed it. We all enjoyed the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah,
and now we're back for the Two Towers. Nick thinks this is the best of the trilogy.
Yeah, as we watch Gandalf kill a Balrog, how could you guys say this isn't the best one? Come on.
This is one of the greatest movies of all time. We do have it currently playing in the background. This was an interesting view for me, probably my 20th view watching this movie.
Okay.
This trilogy is probably the movie that I've seen the most. Like this trilogy, I've seen this movie like back to back to back, more than anything else. And watching it with my lovely wife, Grace, who has not seen any of the Lord of the Rings, and like going through that with her was really interesting to like see like what points stuck out to her, what points like were kind of frightful, or like what points she was like interested. She was very concerned about like the ring itself, and like whenever like Frodo would look at it, she's like no, and it's like just the intrigue of like the ring being like this burden and this like thing that will turn you evil. Like she was very intrigued with that. But the scene where Gandalf in the beginning of this movie jumps down and like has his sword, find the Balrog, she's like iconic. That's the only way that you can describe it.
100%.
Yeah.
Super cool.
It's a fantastic opening to a movie. Especially picking right up where you left off, sort of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're kind of left. I mean, the final scene with Gandalf is just him falling, right? So, well, not the final scene of the film, but the final appearance that we have. So, like, there's definitely more that, like, you could have seen.
Yeah.
That you're just kind of like, oh man, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And then for the movie to go ahead and be like, hey, let's reverse like 45 minutes. Here's what actually went down.
Yeah.
Pretty cool opener.
One of the greatest probably cold opens in cinema. Let's throw it out there. What do we
Wow.
think? That or Spider-Man 2? That's all we got.
I don't even remember how that
How did
starts.
that start?
No, for sure. I mean, like, and it's a stark contrast as it being the second film to just kind of like, hey, the first one did a lot of heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the world. Here's this place. Here's this place. Here's the characters. Here's what they do. Here's their motives. Second one's like, now let's get it.
Yeah.
Like, it has the luxury of like, it's going to be 3 hours, but it's going to be like starting now. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to go. And that's probably why I like it, because from start to finish, it's just nonstop.
Yeah.
But I understand why the Fellowship is dope.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand why Return of the King is dope.
Mm-hmm.
But your boy loves that
Loves Two
middle
Towers.
chapter of just like, it's just like drinking from a fire hydrant out of Mount Doom.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
The Mount Doom hydrant
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a fire hydrant.
of Doom. It's a good
And
analogy.
spewing lava.
It's spewing lava.
We're on fire tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Chris, remind us of your thoughts of the Fellowship of the Ring, and just maybe give us a general idea of the Two Towers, your thoughts on that, and maybe your experience with it in the past.
Yeah. Going to Fellowship of the Ring first. I think last time I said that was my favorite one,
Mhm.
if not perhaps Return of the King, which then puts Two Towers actually third in place.
Hey,
Whoops.
people have opinions.
Yep.
I would agree with Chris's opinion on that.
And that's just because there's so much awe and world build in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And now the second one, it's sheer expansion, like you said, Nick.
Mhm.
It's just all right. You know the road. Here's
Yep.
the foundation. We're just gonna run for it.
Mhm.
And so that makes Two Towers, I think, enjoyable, because really they can do a little, like, they know where they started and they know where they need to go
Mm-hmm.
for it, and they can just kind of fill it in with whatever they want to cinematically choose.
Right.
So it does make it fun. Like, they can focus more on the battle scenes or even more the moving dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
which is good, and character development. But yeah, I would have to say the second one is probably the third best
Mm-hmm.
Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah.
And that's a really close third.
Mhm.
I mean, they're all right up there.
Yeah, it's a 10 out of 10, but it's the third rated film in this trilogy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's such a weird concept to think about, because it has to sound negative.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you were given 5 films, and this is one of them, and none of the rest of the Lord of the Rings were in it,
Mhm.
and just like 4 other, it might still be the best film.
Yeah.
out
Right.
of, you know what I mean? Like, but anyway,
It's kind of like the Dune complex that you've suggested a few times, like, you know,
Dune Complex. Ooh.
Yeah,
This guy
Dune complex.
does this guy listen to us?
Just a few times.
He is wearing our shirt, by the way.
I
He
am.
is repping the
I'm
Not Us United
repping
shirt.
The merch.
Yeah.
God bless.
It's wonderful.
OG.
God bless.
Quite comfortable.
Mm.
But like, as a standalone movie, and you knew nothing before and nothing after, it probably brings it down. But it is also literally you jumping right into
Mm-hmm.
the middle of an adventure.
Yeah.
True.
So like, if you jumped in this movie, had no idea what was going on, you'd be a little
It would
confused.
suffer.
You'd be
Yeah.
like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why is there this guy in this loincloth that looks spooky?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I
Like,
mean? Only things you'd understand.
And they're
if
not
you watched
talking
Lord
about
of the
me,
Rings. Two Towers. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
no. And but yeah, that's Two Towers, third best. But yeah, my experience with Two Towers is that like I said, it's part of the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just that next step in between the Fellowship and then going into the Return of the King. I will say I've probably seen the Two Towers the most.
Mhm.
Yes.
because usually it's on cable.
Right.
That's right. TNT.
And so yeah, like
It's
you
like
switch
8
over
hours.
you switch over TNT and there's your afternoon.
Just on. Yeah.
And you're just like, oh yeah.
I'm there.
I'm
I just ate mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving. I'm barely passed out. And there's like an 8-hour extended cut because TNT's commercials are like an hour long each.
Right.
And then you get to watch 20 minutes of film. Oh, anyway, continue.
It's beautiful.
But I mean that's yeah. So like besides watching all three collectively, like Two Towers is usually what is on television at the time.
I don't know why. That just seems to be it's an odd one to pick too. The middle of a series.
To some, it's odd.
My guess is they start early in the morning with Fellowship, which then 6 to 8 hours later in the afternoon when you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sit down and watch some TV.
Yep.
Two Towers is on.
Yeah.
And you're not
at midnight.
By midnight they start Return of the King, and then they start over again at 8.
The only one that's actually on during daylight.
Yeah.
That's why I got it.
So probably because if you're up at 1-2 o'clock a.m., you need that hope and inspiration that the King is going to return.
The King comes back.
You're probably feeling a little down at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So.
Amen.
So I think some comparisons. I kind of wanted to go through some comparisons between this and the book. I know we talked about the book, and in the Fellowship the first time we talked about our boy Tom Bombadil. We talked about him bombadilling around.
Tommy B.
But maybe what are some differences? And I don't remember a lot of the differences.
101,
Two
baby.
Towers. There's two.
Say enough
two
adjectives.
right?
You sound great. Super a lot. Continue.
I am on fire tonight, much like the fires of Mount Doom. I cannot be quenched.
I'm there.
Never
I'm there.
ceasing.
Never ceasing. Like differences between this and the book. And I don't remember too much of the book, but I do remember kind of this part where I was shocked kind of watching the movies for so many years and then reading the book only a few years back, and how it's split into parts. And so there's a part 3 in this, which is, there's 6 parts total. And so the first 2 are the Fellowship, second 2 are the Two Towers, and then the 5 and 6 are the Return of the King. So 3 and 4 in this, and 3 follows like all of the Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas and then all that stuff in Rohan. And then part 4 is just Frodo and Sam.
Oh yeah.
And
interesting.
it's so you don't get it's so like separate. And so the choice to make this, I mean, just cinematically, it's way better to do that, I think, right?
Oh yeah, to intertwine everything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because otherwise you're gonna forget.
Yeah, and so
you need touch points.
And I think it just tells the age of the book. Nick is just loving this.
Oh, I just.
Do we need to turn this off?
No, it's fine. I just Aragorn's the man. Like, he literally puts his ear to a rock and is like, "They've been here." And it's just my guy. Supernatural. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. Like you're not to intertwine it was the right choice. Because it's just gonna be. I was so shocked that that happened, and it shows the age of the book that it was kind of written in, where it's like, here's the story of these people, and then here's the story of these people. Like,
absolutely.
Now it would have been like characters changing point of views and jumping between characters and stuff, and writing it like that. But this was just so segmented. I thought that was interesting.
Does Merry and Pippin not have anything in the book?
What they're on this. They're in this storyline, the Aragorn and
they're involved. Okay.
It's literally everybody else, and then Frodo, Sam, and Gimli. Smeagol. Yeah.
Smeagol.
And that's it. That's their kind of story, and then it's everybody else is part 3.
I wonder for a book point of view, though, if it is easier just to be binary in that regard, to just be like, okay, let's just progress this story, and so I can just focus on all the details of just what's happening. Meanwhile, part 4, and then you switch over. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or can you read the book out of order? Could you do like one chapter of 3 and one chapter of 4?
I don't know.
I'm
sure you
I know
could.
I started the book. I've yet to really pick it back up for a good while. I kind of fell in a funk because I was trying to reread it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could go chapter by chapter. I think that's because the timelines are probably vastly different. Frodo and Sam probably move a lot slower.
That makes sense.
Than the events of
this.
Yeah, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and
What?
Nick is
I
enjoying
love
the movie.
Legolas, dude.
Yeah, they're taking
This
the
is
Hobbits to
Legolas's movie,
Isengard.
dog.
That was the iconic scene with the line.
Mm-hmm. They're taking the Hobbits to Isengard. They're taking the Hobbits to Isengard. Side note: when I was watching this with my lovely wife, and any like every other minute, there's an iconic line. We're just like, hold back from saying this is iconic. Oh, this is iconic.
Oh,
Remember
dude.
this one. Oh,
Yeah.
Tape it off. Oh, you don't know. There's this song associated with this now.
I ruined one of my favorite movies for Kate because I couldn't keep my mouth shut.
About time.
So like, no, School of Rock.
Oh,
With Jack Black.
yeah.
That's hard.
It's so quotable that I
That
was
is
like,
hard.
I would say it like 5 seconds before it happened, and it just immediately made her like not enjoy the film. And I was like, no, wait, it's such a special film, but I like couldn't control myself. So I'm glad that you have that self-control because now I can't watch that movie.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's wild.
Oh man.
but yes, comparisons to the book. Is this one actually pretty close, or do they leave a lot more out of this one compared to the other ones?
I mean, there's a lot more travel, I think, that's depicted, and naturally they kind of jump through that.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Man, I'm trying to remember the book. It's been a while.
There's one major point that I know is different, and I would say it's the biggest difference they've made in the whole trilogy, and that's the one that people are like most controversial, I think,
That's
as well.
not Tom Bombadil.
It's not
I
Bombadil.
I think I know this,
Mhm.
but I'm curious to hear what you say.
Okay, so it's the part in Helm's Deep where
Interesting.
the elves come and help
Oh yeah.
the humans. They don't do that in the book.
Mm-mm.
And so, like, that's a huge controversial decision. Because, like, the whole thing is about, like, humanity taking on this evil on by their own. So having the elves come in makes it more cinematic, more, like, action-packed. But it kind of could diminish, like, the whole, mankind is taking this on, where the book is saying
Like
that.
when
where-
Gandalf shows up, is that what you're talking about?
No, we're like
No.
the elves at Helm's Deep. Not
Just from the beginning.
yeah,
They're
just
already
the
there.
entire fight.
Oh, got it.
They're
Okay.
not the elves are not supposed to be there at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I remember that, but this is not what I was thinking of. So
Okay, what was yours? Yeah.
So, like I said, it's been a while since I read the
Mhm.
book, but I recently read something about how, and I'm pretty sure like Frodo and Sam never go to what was it, Osgiliath?
Osgiliath, yeah.
Like
that's
they never
right. I think that's right.
they never get taken there.
Yeah. Okay.
And they
Oh, that's
they
kind of a
literally wrote a
huge deal.
line for Sam to be like, and like all things like I forget how he says it, but it's beautiful. But it's like, and all things considering, like we're not even supposed to be here. Like, that's a line.
Nice.
literally.
And
That's
it's
so
because
funny.
you're not in the books.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Whoa.
And that kind of blew my mind because I never connected the two. Probably because at that point I was just so entrenched in the book and I wasn't even thinking of the movie.
Lovely.
But yes, the elves, I will agree, were not
Mhm.
supposed to be at Helm's
Mhm.
Deep. But man, did it make a great
It was pretty
cinematic touch.
cool. Yeah. I'm not like hung up on that
Right.
at all. And even the Osgiliath thing, it's like I think that makes sense to break up. Like otherwise they're just sitting in a gray mountain for like a movie and a half, and it's just like, okay, let's do something. Where Osgiliath was like, I like that scene a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It
Pretty iconic.
it brings the reality of how close they are getting to getting to Mordor and like the danger of it all.
Well, and just from a movie standpoint, the set of that is pretty dope.
Yeah.
Like, they do a good job of
And
like,
this ruined city, like yeah.
because most of it is like they just naturally are in like New Zealand, you
Yeah.
know, with all these
Wilderness,
like
beautiful wilderness.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then when they get into these like ruins of former like castles and buildings and stuff, I feel like that one's such an iconic. And then the what do you call them? The Nazgul with the Drake.
Mhm. Iconic. And it's just like coming like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh man.
There's just so many cool movie-esque qualities to that scene that I like it a lot. So it's fine. I don't care what anyone thinks.
I agree. We're not
It's a fantastic part of the film. It's just not true homage to the book.
the book, sure. Mm.
So I mean,
Sure, I get you.
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about Carl Urban being one of the coolest guys ever?
Iconic.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah.
He is Faramir?
No.
No, Faramir was Boromir's brother.
Yep.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
He's the writer of He's one of the Rohan.
Rohirrim. I
that-
forget his name right now.
I'll look it up.
It starts with an E.
Ereforn.
Ermor?
Aramor,
Or
yeah.
Elmore?
Something like that.
Man.
We're fans. We promise.
It's like I just watched this recently. Like,
We're such fans.
Olmor.
What?
Eomer. I'm probably saying it wrong.
Yarmor. Yarmor.
Yeah, Eomer. Yep.
But he's like cousin to the king or something.
Right.
Like
It's like his uncle, his nephew,
king,
uncle nephew kind of.
yeah,
thing.
Theoden's his uncle.
Yeah.
King Theoden.
Beautiful.
Maybe we jump into Rohan. What do we think of Rohan? And like, I was just thinking of like watching it again, like just having this like whole kind of like middle of the trilogy being set in this kind of middle of nowhere almost kind of land, where it's just like a different country, and then we move into the third movie of like the country of like Gondor and like kind of the big one, and just like this is like a huge world building pull to be like this whole thing could really not be a part of the trilogy. It's like not necessary to it, but it is great to include Rohan and like in this huge like just paintbrush scope of like of the world. I love Rohan. I think it's really, really cool. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Chris, you first.
You just like watching him run.
No, I have a special thing about writers of Rohan
Okay.
that I'll share later.
You know, I was kind of thinking of this, like why did they why did Tolkien, you know, write in Rohan and all of that? And after watching some of the Rings of Power, you know, it got me thinking of like, you know, canon and lore going back into that, which I'm excited to see how that all pans out.
Yeah.
But like Rohan is like, it's just its own element, which is good because I think it's just slowly moving the world into more and more of a desolate place. You know, you start in the Shire, which is green, hilly, full of trees, full of life. Everyone's happy and healthy and fat.
That's how I want to be.
Oh yeah.
Healthy and fat, that'd be nice.
Oh yeah. And then they move into, you know, Rivendell, which is, you know, very fair. It's an elven city. But then they move into the mountains. Still grandeur because it's, you know, Moria. And, you know, there's very, you know,
But
good
the scope of it.
Yeah,
is
the
like
scope of it, like it, like this is a kingdom.
Yeah.
And then now we're moving on the other side of the mountains, and it's those flats that you see on the other side of the mountains, kind of like what you'd see in like Colorado, Nebraska, sort of thing. And like now you're getting into what's, you know, it's flat. There's not much exciting to it, but like it's becoming a little more desolate, just vast expanse.
And this is also like the first like man kingdom that we've like encountered, right?
Yes.
Because we were at Bree in that city, but like this is like the first like kingdom of man.
Yeah, it's a
Interesting.
kingdom of man.
Yeah.
And then in the Return of the King, you know, you just keep moving on into the area of Gondor, which is literally at the doorstep of Mordor, which is a completely desolate place. Smoke, ash, and
hell.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I think it just shows the progression, both geographically, like how you're going from that peace and beauty to how, like that brokenness and evil, like just that extreme gradient.
Yeah.
Because like even if you consider like where the elves leave, like the Grey Havens, that's on the other side of the Shire. So like the elves, they go through the Shire and they keep going west to the Grey Havens, and then they keep going even further west into the Undying Lands. And so it's just that entire gradient of like that goodness and what you can see here. But I love. I don't know if this is a great word for it, but I just love the texture of Rohan
like
and what it brings, and like the fact that they're like it's a horse, like a horse-based region. I mean, it's so vast and it's just so, like they're pretty much
just cool,
it's just prairie and just like like nothing, rock, like minor hills. Like it's perfect for horses and everything. So it just makes sense too. But yeah, and with it being the two towers, you're addressing kind of the minor battle, because like they're trying to attack, they're trying to end man and the rule of man, because the elves are pretty much leaving. So now Sauron's like, all right, I just need to take down man, and we're good. And so attacking from two fronts. So here you're seeing the first front as we're moving, eastward, sort of thing. So I do like that, like with Rohan and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you guys know that most of the riders of Rohan in the like close-up scenes are women with beards? Classic. Because they can ride a little bit easier.
Needed horse riders.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That is really cool.
But just as a fan of Lord of the Rings, these are probably like, if I can't be a main character in these movies, I want to be a rider of Rohan.
Yeah. You want to be these guys?
Beast. Dude.
I bet the
These
extras got
warriors.
cycled around. Like you're probably a rider of Rohan, and then you're an orc, and
Yeah.
then you're some,
some whatever
agent of evil that
Yeah.
Sauron is bringing through the Black Gate, and then next thing you know, you're a peasant.
Yeah.
You're just
getting stabbed.
You're
They
just
just-
everywhere.
They have this vibe of like kind of like a SWAT team. Like they're
like these guys.
Their squadrons aren't like huge, but like they're devastating when
Yeah.
they show up,
Like we just saw the scene of them going in on that orc encampment, and they just like wreck shop.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, kind of reminds me of like Spartans or something, like just very like, it doesn't matter what our number is, we're organized, and like we know how to take things take things down. But also, apart from the movies and the books, in the video games, anytime you got a chance to get like a Rider of Rohan like unit in any of like the war video games, dude,
They
were
smoked.
awesome. I loved having Riders of Rohan. So that's my little tangent. If I couldn't be a superhero and I had to be in Lord of the Rings, Riders of Rohan, baby.
He couldn't be a superhero. Okay, got it.
So Nick, what is your take on Rohan, or was that it?
That was it.
That was
Sorry.
it?
Yeah, sorry.
They're awesome. Anyways,
I just didn't want to leave
I
you hanging,
digress.
No. I just, when I think of Rohan, I can't not think of the Riders. Like they're so iconic. I love them so much.
I think they look really great.
Yeah.
Very
cool.
When I think of Rohan, I think of Theoden. I think he is like,
Sure.
And every once in a while I'll be like, oh, this person's my favorite character, and this person's my favorite character. I'm like, at points in like Theoden, at points in the movie, Theoden's my favorite character because he's awesome.
Wow. Oh yeah.
Dude, the speech he gives in the third movie, awesome.
No spoilers.
Yeah, and then the speech he gives to go out of Helm's Deep, dude, iconic.
Man.
I think
you're
he's just a strong presence, and he does a really
does a
great
good
job. And so
Fair
I think Theoden's like a sleeper hit for like a great character.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And so I just like whenever I think of Rohan, I'm like, oh yeah, we get Theoden, and like I would not be happy if Theoden was like just not in this in some way, like book, movie, whatever. And just like I think he brings a lot to the table as this like kind of like major king player, but not like the king, right?
Right.
We're gonna get to the part where
because really he is the first king we see in the entire films. He's the only king until Aragorn is technically crowned.
Mm-hmm.
Because
unless you count like elves kings or whatever, but like this is like king people.
Like he's the first one that like we don't see any dwarves. We don't see. We really don't like. I don't think Elrond's a king. He's just a lord of a high figure, and then you got the steward of Gondor, who's just not even the king. He's just holding the place sort of thing. So, so he kind of had to step up that level of integrity of being king and leadership.
He pops off.
Oh yeah.
One thing I did mention to Grace is that the moment where he kicks the helmet.
Oh yeah.
And he breaks his foot. I think every Lord of the Rings fan needs to know that. Like, it's the one thing where it happens and it's like, oh, he broke his foot. And like, I don't know. There's a special moment.
Well, it just...
Viggo Mortensen, like the actor.
Yeah.
Broke his foot. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
He broke his foot or his toe
Yeah.
or something like that, kicking the helmet. And
He didn't, like, he wasn't supposed to do that, but he kicked an actual helmet and it broke his foot. And that scream he makes is
pure
him
pain.
breaking his foot for real.
This is why we
and then he kept filming.
Yeah.
This is why you don't method act, okay, folks? Just act. Jeez.
Oh, man. There's so many behind-the-scenes stories of
Yeah.
People actually
Mortensen,
becoming
yeah.
orcs and stuff. It's
Well,
like, what is
like-
going on?
Like, he would refuse to, like, ride in the helicopters to get, like, up into the
Mhm.
hills or to destinations. Like, he would hoof it. Like, he would go on
Mhm.
foot and...
Listen to the ground.
Well, no, like, and, like, he would patch his own clothes, like, if they got worn, and, like, he'd get help by the costume department. Like, hey, I want to do this,
Mhm.
but obviously it
That's
needs to
kind of
be, like,
authentic. Yeah.
film-esque. Like, he's very much a method actor.
Yeah. But I mean, like, Aragorn, he crushes it.
Oh, yeah,
Incredible.
absolutely.
Incredible.
I can't think of anyone else
Oh, no way.
in this role.
Yeah.
Did a good job. If I ever become an actor one day, and they ask me, do you method act? I would tell them, no, I just do whatever.
I just act.
Yeah, because can't do it. I would never run 2 miles just to be like, gotta stay in character, boys. No. Or it's like, what if I had to stay in character as a hobbit? It's like, I don't
Hairy
want
feet.
to be that short the whole time.
They're not going to...
How do you do that? I don't want to shrink. Come on.
Okay.
Movie
Anyways.
magic. Movie
Movie
magic.
magic.
They,
Movie
they
magic,
do it.
yeah.
Hollywood
Act
has
short,
its ways.
act short,
You
act
get in
short.
you get in a machine and you literally just shrink down to about
Yeah.
3'9".
Yeah, it's
Into a
perfect.
little wee lad.
Into a wee lad.
Merry and Pippin, my
Just
boys.
just going through them, like, there's some iconic lines in this.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
in
sure.
this movie.
There's been a few times
yeah.
I've been like,
Yeah, there's one,
iconic.
Meat's back on the menu, boys. Love that one.
Amazing.
Taking the hobbits to Isengard. There's a few in here. Do we have, off the top of our head, like, pound for pound, which movie might have the most iconic lines or, like, maybe moments? I think the first one might take the cake here. We got You Shall Not Pass.
yeah.
Probably the most iconic one in the movies. Second Breakfast. I rest my case.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Fat Hobbits.
Mm.
It's a good one. That's in the second one, I think.
I mean,
But he might say it in all
yeah.
both.
That might be.
Second and third one.
My favorite line
Mm.
is when they're talking when Sam and Frodo get captured by Faramir,
Mm-hmm.
and they're asking and he's asking who are you, and Frodo's like, I'm Frodo the Shire and everything, and then he turns to Sam and I'm like, who are you, his bodyguard? And Sam's like, no, his gardener. And just I love it so much.
No, his
just
gardener.
the way he just
Delivers.
delivers
Yeah.
it. It's Sean Austin just
Mm.
on point.
This one has potatoes.
Oh, no. That's pretty good.
does.
You're
It
right.
does have potatoes.
It does have potatoes. That's the second breakfast of this movie.
Come on. Boil 'em, smash 'em,
Potatoes.
throw them in a stew.
Taters. What's taters? Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Boil 'em,
Sam,
mash
yeah,
'em.
pissed off Sam has some
Yeah.
banger lines.
I will say, probably one of my favorite lines and one of my favorite moments is in this movie, and it's when like Gimli and Legolas are starting the competition
Oh, the
of
count.
the count,
Mm.
and I think it's in the extended edition, and Gimli's sitting on
Oh yeah,
an
totally
orc.
extended edition.
Okay,
Yeah.
and he's like, I've counted 73 kills, and he beats Legolas by 1, and so he shoots the orc underneath him, and he's like, what? He was already dead. And he's like, no, he was twitching. And I was like, oh, it's
My
so good.
axe is
My
literally
axe-
in
his nervous system. That's
and
because
he
my
moves
axe
it, and the guy
is-
just twitches.
Oh, it's so good. My axe has been embedded in his
Oh, man.
nervous system.
I don't think those humor lines are necessarily in the books, but
Mhm.
man,
Oh, it gives
It's
some
great.
character.
for such a devastating event,
Yeah.
you kind of need those
Brevity.
lighthearted
Yeah.
quips,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which help make it a little more
Mhm.
palatable when you're
Yeah.
seeing 10,000 orcs get slaughtered,
Mhm.
or
Well, I think that's kind of the beauty of it all too. Is Merry and Pippin just even being in the Fellowship is just hilarious.
Yes.
It's just all right, we've assembled the greatest squad we can think of. And they're like, yeah, so when's second breakfast? And you're just like, yes, anyone can be in the squad. Like, they humanize, or they like ground this team with like realistic look. They're not all just like stereotypical,
not all
heroes,
Aragorns,
you know.
But even then,
and
like,
even Aragorn though has phenomenal like just
cheekbones, yeah.
Well, don't get me started.
His hair?
Yeah, everything about him. Yeah. There's like everyone's like flawed in their own way,
right?
You know, like they're no one is this perfect. Just like I am pure, I am a hero. Like Frodo, who's quote unquote our hero of the story, kind of does a lot of stuff to piss you off throughout the film because he's even in himself like, I have a mission, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect. And I think that's like the beautiful arc of this film is that no one in and of themselves could have done it by themselves.
Right.
They all needed to be together
right.
in some way to achieve this goal. You know?
Yeah. It kind of is like, I mean, we talk about like Tolkien and his like the influence of like his faith. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of it is embodied in Aragorn as like this kind of Jesus figure, but it's all kind of also spread out between everybody. Like everyone in their own way is like this hero, is like this this Jesus figure, because Frodo has to take the ring to Mordor, but he couldn't do that without everybody else. And Sam in the end, spoilers, like helps him, like literally carries him to Mordor, and like is the only reason that like Frodo even makes it like a foot forward. Yeah. But Aragorn is like the king. They're like the quote unquote like return of the king. But then also like we talk about like Theoden, he is playing his own role. Like he is like this kind of like redemption in himself, and like and Gandalf, he dies and comes back, and it's like there's like all these different elements of like that through line of like that inspiration there.
Well, and then you even have like deep down there's also this like between the dwarves and the elves, and how they just like inherently don't get along, but yet you see two of them become best friends through this story, and there's just this act of like diversity was almost what you guys saw as weakness, but the whole team is literally diversity, and it gives you strength. You know, like all of the people are needed to be strong,
and each person has its own specialty,
right?
Too.
Yeah. Like what would quote unquote be the physically like weakest character might have the most mental fortitude to withstand the power of the ring, you know. Which is just insane, because Frodo like gets sent through the ringer. Dude gets like
little ringer.
Like I did it. But thanks for noticing. And so I just think they do a beautiful job of like representing like what community should look like. Like if you are flawed, which there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but like people around you are what strengthen you in those areas, you know?
Absolutely.
It's good.
Because even then too, like you look at the Fellowship, and there's like a human, a wizard, a dwarf, and an elf, and then I was thinking there's another half human, half long living human man, Aragorn.
Yeah.
And then there's 4 hobbits. Like the race that is like the most forgotten, the most like, why would you have thought of them in your grand scheme of redemption, basically? And they're in there too.
And they play
arguably
some of the most important roles, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, and we didn't even talk about, if we were talking about the faith aspect of Tolkien, I mean, literally Gandalf is resurrected from the dead.
Right. Yeah.
So, like there's sometimes when he just like is subtle, and then there's other times where it's just like very like, hey, I'm not like hiding what this is inspired by. But I think what's fascinating is how much is inspired by him, and just how much he's done for fantasy, the genre in general. Like these books are amazing, and then any adaptation of them, which has only been one, has been considered masterpieces of cinema. Dude was onto something. Like his story was he just knew what he was doing. It's very good. Dude was ahead of his time.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it has been adapted once before.
The movies have?
The Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is it, 80s, 90s
Yeah,
or
that's
something like that? They did a
an
cartoon
awful
version or
looking-
something like
yeah.
But it was dope.
that. I personally haven't seen it,
Oh,
but
got
I've
it.
also not, I've not heard good things
We
about
don't.
it.
Yeah.
Where what Peter Jackson does in these movies
Incredible.
does it a whole lot more justice.
Do you ever think that these would ever be remade? At some point in time, maybe.
Oh, man.
They're toying around with it. I mean, if they're making a show,
Yeah.
Rings of Power.
yeah, I'm just saying, like, with Rings of Power existing, I don't think we can say that it's never not going to happen.
Because I mean, like going through it again, it's like okay, some of the effects don't hold up the best,
Yeah.
but like I don't know, man. There's gonna be a point where like even like this looks fine,
Yeah.
but like there's a point where like if they have like a CG background and like the cuts they might make
Yeah.
to different parts of the movie and the edges they might kind of try and smooth off, just make it look different, and like you don't get this kind of performance, you don't get this
Yeah.
kind of rawness from
I wonder if they'd remaster it.
like
You know, like
yeah.
say technology gets far enough,
Mhm.
you know, with VR and whatnot coming in, they remaster it. 'Cause yeah, looking back, especially like I think my TV now is like 4K, and like looking
Mhm.
back and watching Gollum, you're like, whoa, you are you are a computer. But
Yeah.
I remember first watching it, like that was
Right.
just some great special
Mhm.
effects there. So I wonder if they wouldn't go back and maybe just remaster it.
That's not a bad idea.
And just let like soften those edges to
Yeah.
make it maybe a little more realistic. But
I'm-
I
oh,
don't
good.
know. I don't know if you could.
It'd be tough, man.
I don't know if they'll...
You'd have to have a completely different take on it.
Yeah. Or they'll do kind of similar to like what Disney did, and I could see them do like the Rogue One story of while the Fellowship was doing this, here's
things.
what was going on before the Battle of Helm's Deep, the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way they're like dabbling close to it, so then you can maybe get a cameo of like a 60-year-old Orlando Bloom
Right.
putting on
Mhm.
a wig again, and they're like, oh, he's back, but it's not like actually the movie.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
like I think that's probably what they would do, just because some of that would be like safe, easy money. But I don't know. Maybe Amazon having the rights to it, maybe there is some sort of creative like, hey, you can make stories around this, but you
Yeah,
can never
right.
make the main book stories.
I'm
ever
sure as long as
again.
the Tolkien estate
Yeah.
like has some kind of say,
They have a strong say.
then it's not gonna. These won't be touched. But yeah, those kind of side
But
stories.
I'm kind of glad because unlike Star Wars, I kind of want more outside of the main story. It doesn't always
for
have to
sure.
connect,
Mhm.
you know. And so like you have the Silmarillion,
Mm-hmm.
which is obviously a bigger chunk of time and just a
Right.
lot of stuff, but like kind of similar to like Knights of the Old Republic in the Star Wars realm, when there's just like so many Jedi and like the
Mhm.
Sith are starting to form and stuff.
Yep.
It could be cool just to see like the setup to Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
and like all the supernatural stuff that existed
Oh
Like
yeah.
way
we-
before.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's they're dabbbling in that with Rings of Power.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think they're just touching it, and I think they need to see how it lands
Mhm.
first, because there's a lot of content that like Tolkien's son like has.
There's some lore that he just wrote up.
Well, I
He,
mean,
like, really went
Tolkien
into.
wrote it, but
Okay.
then his son, I
Right.
think, finished
Published
it
it and
and
everything.
wrapped it all up nicely
Yeah.
and everything. And like, there's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. Like, I remember for Christmas I asked for the
Silmarillion,
Silmarillion,
yeah.
and all of a sudden I've got like 6 books of Lord of the Rings lore, and I'm like, I don't know when I'm gonna get through all this, because this is a lot to read.
Sure.
But like there's plenty of source material that they could dip into.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I guess while we have brought it up, quick thoughts of the Ring of Power and just the show in general. I really enjoyed it, and I thought I was not going to enjoy it. So I was surprised.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I was entertained.
Mhm.
You know, I know there's going to be the purists who are like timelines off, or like, how does this fit with the original trilogies and all this other stuff? And I'm like, I'm just entertained.
Yeah.
At this point, like, you've got the initial 3 movies, which are fantastic, and then you got The Hobbit, which expands things. But now you can get into kind of the more fantasy side of things, where it doesn't have to be like point for point. And I think they just had fun with it. And I mean, they kind of know in the direction they need to go.
Right.
But I mean, it was entertaining. Like I enjoyed it, and I'm excited for season 2.
I agree.
I want to see how this unfolds. Yeah.
I think like for the purist out there, it's like you can still have how it was written down and how the books were made. But I think this is like, and they would have to cover so much in that span. So it's just like, I think you gotta shorten it. Even make a TV show, it's like, well, this happened, and then 100 years later, this happened, and then 100 years later, this other person happened. It's like, you don't get any connective tissue, but in a story, in a way that like, in a book, a lore book, yeah, you could write it like that. But in a show, you gotta really tighten that up.
And even with the original 3, there's a lot they didn't include. Like, there's so much character development. There's like 3-page long poems that doesn't get recited when they're in Rivendell. I mean, like, there's a lot that doesn't get included. So if you're gonna hang your hat on something, it's like, well, come on.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing I will say is that I can't think of a scenario where more content about the thing that was really well received will ever be a bad thing, because you can always not watch it.
Yeah, that's
you know
fair.
what I mean?
Yep.
Like, so
it doesn't change these movies at all.
Correct. Like, so if you're like, man, I don't trust that they're going to do this correctly, this is going to be really awesome for you, because guess what? You don't have to watch it if you're really that scared. But I think Star Wars kind of caused this whole thing to happen. Well, I'm sure it's existed forever, but now that the internet is as prevalent as it is, people can connect in faster ways. But I think, like, we don't need to just say, just enjoy what's been created. You don't need more, because there are generations of people who might not actually have someone that told them to check this out. So when they see Rings of Power, they go, wait, what is this connected? Oh, this is connected to Lord of the Rings. Maybe I should check those out. And then they can make up their mind. They're like, hey, the TV show was kind of cool. I kind of got sucked in. Now I'm going to watch the movies are way better. Great, cool. Do you want to withhold that from somebody because they never would have been advertised Lord of the Rings to begin with? So I'm always like pro content. Now, it doesn't mean that content always is good. But Rings of Power for me, yes, I enjoyed it because I felt like it did. If there is a DNA to Lord of the Rings that's important, I feel like they got visuals correct. I feel like a lot of the budget made it look good.
Yes.
And I felt like if you can somehow capture what the movies did and how they looked so that it just kind of fits, I think they handled all of that correctly. And for me, not knowing like what character connects to what character that could possibly be this, I was actually genuinely surprised when certain things went down the way that they did. Like certain characters' revelations of like who they actually are and stuff. I was like, wow, never would have guessed that.
Yeah.
Maybe some people could have, because it's like, well, if you connect the dots here and you remember this story, it's clear that this person was this. It was like, oh, okay. So for me, it was like genuinely enjoyable to like experience something new about something that I liked but haven't had any new content on for like a decade or more, almost 2 decades, right?
Yeah, there's a good
hiatus. From these, it was 2001, 2, 3, but and The Hobbit happened.
But I'm like,
even with The Hobbit,
it's at least
like 15 years.
I think the last one came out when I was in high school, and that was in 2012 was the last year. So about 10 years.
10? Okay.
I have one of the theater cups from the theater when The Desolation of Smaug came out. But there's always something in Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, whatever, that just is awesome. There's always some aspect that just is good, even if you don't like. So like for me, The Hobbit in general, like as a trilogy, just didn't work as good for me because it kind of felt like a shorter story than any of them, but told over 3 movies. But Smaug looked dope. Like there was no scene where Smaug was in where I was like, this is not one of the coolest things I'm seeing right now. And Benedict Cumberbatch, come on, dude, that guy had a moment and is still in said moment, and he just feels like he's been popping off for like 10 years straight. It's insane. Anyway, love's a long way to say that I like things.
Yeah, good for you.
Hey, thanks, man. I want to contribute.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, I know I'm like the least Lord of the Rings fan here.
But this is your favorite movie.
Your movie.
But I'm, you know, hey, I'm trying to stand my ground. You know, I am the Hobbit of this fellowship. But like, you never know. Maybe I'm gonna bring a big tree to like tear down your camp.
Yeah, maybe we'll throw a ring into Mordor.
Maybe, or maybe I'll bring some lambus bread.
By the way,
Potatoes.
what's on TV? What's on the screen right now? Like, it's one of my more cinematic shots is when he throws the elven cloak, and just like perfectly blends in, and I'm like, I love that.
I always
I think it's very practical. Like, I think they did that very practical too. Like they just did crazy stuff to that cloak to make it look like that, and then he rips it off.
I love like the takeaway shot. It's like,
look at that. No idea.
After this shot, when there's kind of like a more wide and there's just the rocks, it's like, wait, which rock are there again?
Yeah.
And like you even lose them, and it's like, I think it's really cool. This scene I always forget because it's like, oh wait, they got so close, and then they stop and they go like the whole way around. So you kind of like forget that they get this close. And so I'm always like, oh yeah, this scene, and like. And it reminds me, and just like, I don't know, I like the scene a lot. The look of it, the gate, the freaking like giant orc, like the cave trolls that are like opening up the gate. Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. Just like little moments like that. They didn't have to go that hard. Right. They didn't have to have the two trolls. Yeah, like opening up the black gate. Like, and that's awesome.
And it's like practical too. It's not like there's some fancy mechanism. It's like, no, it's just manual labor, just pushing this thing open.
Yeah. So that's where, like, if it was remade today, it wouldn't work the same like this. And then you have to do something different, and then you have to do like, you can't do the same thing because then someone's already done this, and then even the look of it would just look so different. I don't know. It'd be difficult.
True.
Nick, why do you think this one speaks to you the most? Why is this your precious of the three?
Ooh. Wow.
Ooh,
wow,
man.
Dude.
It's precious.
That was a good one.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a good time.
This has been not a
I'm here all week. I'll see you. Why this one is the most special to me is there's some nostalgia and like things that happened around the time of this one that didn't happen when I saw the first one. I think what happened was I don't think I saw the first one in theaters. And I think I watched the second one like after I saw the first one on DVD, kind of a thing.
Got it.
Like, so like this was kind of my first big one. And for me, like at that age, I think just the practical effects of warfare in this one with Helm's Deep just being this like epic skirmish that I know isn't like the largest battle that takes place in the films, but there's just something that's so like I just love like not necessarily like an underdog story, but like if everyone's not on their game, guess what? We all die. And it just happens to be this like beautiful example of like if everyone can just keep going and believing that they can do it, they can win a battle that is definitely impossible to win. And it's for me when it feels like the most hopeless.
Yes.
And yet they still prevail. And so that's for me, I think, why this just like has always stayed closer to me, because this feels like the biggest thing they had to overcome. And then I know the third one, there's like lots of stuff that happens, but the way the solution to the fight in the third one has never sat well with me compared to the second one. It still feels like it's a realistic way to win, Whereas in the third one, it just kind of felt
They
like,
got the
oh, you
ghosts.
got the invincible guys, nice.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that doesn't feel as good.
Absolutely.
And
I
so
can agree with that.
Yeah.
for me, like the Battle of Helm's Deep is just so iconic that it's just stayed with me forever. And I think like you have the Theoden redemption. There's just a lot of like darkness, but there's like so much light.
Yeah.
At the end, so like it pays off for like toughing it all the way through.
Yeah.
So, but I do understand that the flaw of this film is that it does end in almost like a very similar state as the first one did, and so you're almost like, wait, did I just watch? In some of the arcs, it almost ends like exactly the same. So you're like, oh, I kind of watched the same movie, but there is so much different about this one that just kind of like gets going that
Right.
It's always been special to me.
Yeah, I think to the points there. Let's take kind of them ending in the same place. The characters have grown and they have changed, even though they're like, I can agree where it's like, oh, now Frodo and Sam are still gonna go to Mordor and to throw the ring in there, and like Gandalf and all these other people are still going to Gondor and they're gonna do that, but like it just like so much has happened in two where it's just like
we
they
like
are
them
different
a lot
people
more now
lore.
too.
Yeah, so it gives you time with these characters and you know who they are and all that. So
each person kind of, like for a D&D reference, they level up a little bit in this movie. Like there's a slight change. There's just that move, like
everyone's a little more of a fierce,
beefed up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like Aragorn starts accepting his fate a little bit more as future king.
Yeah,
and Frodo is starting to feel the idea and the weight of the ring might consume his life.
Yeah,
and
because I don't think you get that payoff of 3 if you don't have 2.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
To your other point of like the darkness and then the light of the end of Helm's Deep. Helm's Deep is one of the best battles of all time, and if not in one of these in this movies this trilogy. And it's just like there is the point of like there's some great set pieces in there. There's like the point where they're like really winning, and then the wall blows up, and then there's like the side adventure with Gimli and Aragorn, and like the just trying to hold down a gate, and then he's like, "Toss me,
them, dude." Just the two
yeah.
of them.
Oh, it's amazing.
Don't tell the elf.
But that's the thing. Like,
toss me.
if those two, let's say he throws Gimli too far, they lose. Let's say he throws Gimli correctly, and just one of them gets they just get stabbed. Okay, well, the whole thing gets thrown down. You know, it's like it's just so teetering on like failure that it's just such a good tension piece that I'm just like, oh. And then they're doing so many cool things, dude, like Legolas is. I mean, you got the
on the
shield
slide
and everything. I mean, dude.
And I mean, that's the great thing in the battle scene. Like they act like when they just start charging against each other, they actually show someone like getting impaled. And it's like, so you're saying you don't just break through the lines. Like a few of you actually just get impaled because that defensive stance with the spears actually worked.
Well,
good to know.
And you have that first moment of just like everyone's super nervous, and a guy fires his arrow too early and kills one of the orcs. And it's that last moment of like, you can laugh now because the next 45 minutes you can't, because it's going to be intense. You know, like what's about to happen. So like, there's just a cool little, let's just break this for a second. All right, now you guys are about to face one of your worst nightmares. Yeah. Like, and this is terrifying. Like they introduced a new type of orc with the Uruk-hai, sorry. I thought maybe in Rings of Power they call them the Uruk, don't they?
Maybe.
Maybe I'm wrong, but Uruk-hai is definitely what they're called.
These
here.
guys are Uruk-hai.
Which are these like? Are we calling them resurrected like elf half-breed things?
Yeah, they're an elf half-breed,
a fallen elf,
like a dark elf essentially.
Okay, so they previously existed as elves, were like buried in the ground and like corrupted.
I think so.
And then resurrected as
Yeah.
So you just already know like every elf we've ever seen, pretty badass. Now they're like 7 feet tall, 350, toned,
shredded,
and you gave them like just a giant chunk of iron to hit people with. So you're just like,
and
they do
sometimes
such a
very
good
minimal
job.
armor too.
Yeah.
And just like, holy cow.
They don't care. They're just like, you know what?
Screw
like
it.
everyone like even Legolas doesn't have that much armor on because it's like he's so confident in his capabilities that it's like I just need to be free to kill,
to move,
to move. So they do such a good job of setting the tone of like this is
I love this
one of the most formidable races. These are some of the most formidable warriors, and now they're corrupted, pissed off, and shredded, and almost like super powered. They're like Captain America versions that are like working for Hydra, coming at you, and there's a bunch of them. It's just like you just know the table is set for like a very formidable, warrior. And then they do even a better job when that berserker's finally like, I'm here to blow up the wall, and he takes like 4 arrows to the chest, and just got to keep going.
Jumps. Oh, it's so cool.
And so I just think they do a really good job of giving you hopelessness, of there is a lot happening.
We're watching this scene where Gandalf the White is revealed and he encounters Theoden, and I just love the dynamicness of like the camera just being on Gandalf as he's walking forward and focused on him, but around him like the three of his guys are just like beating up all the guards, and just like, oh, it just looks so cool.
One question I did have: is Gandalf the White still Gandalf, or is he truly just a whole new creature?
He is still Gandalf.
Okay.
He's moved up into an order, like he moved up in order of the wizarding class. Like I think White was like the purest and strongest. Oh man, I love this scene. Look, he's got a bruise on his forehead. Like Saruman has a bruise from the staff from that. Like it's amazing.
Oh yeah, Saruman, not Count Dooku.
Oh, close enough.
Oh man. But he moved up a class because Saruman
like corrupted.
Yeah, he failed his duty by the gods that sent them or whatnot, and so they had to they decided to replace him with Gandalf. So Gandalf still has the memories and the thoughts and the emotions, and when you meet him in the forest, like it takes him a little bit.
Yeah,
and I loved it when they in the Forest of Fangorn, like even when they first introduced him to Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli, like they meld his voice with Saruman's voice to make that mystery. Like, oh wait, who is this? Who is this?
The White Wizard.
And then all of a sudden they do the reveal, which I love that little disguise.
There's like a split second too where when the light fades, it looks like they CGI'd Christopher Lee's like face on him, and then it like becomes.
Yeah, I think they both did the scene.
Yeah,
and then I think they just kind of overlaid him a little.
Yeah,
that's
and
cool.
then they faded out. I don't think it was CGI. I think they both just did the scene.
Yeah,
exactly. And then because they're both amazing actors, but yeah, he pretty much got leveled up. But he still has all the thoughts and feelings.
At one point,
He's still Gandalf.
But it took him a while because he died.
It's like you woke up from a nap,
right?
Yeah.
But like you just defeated a Balrog,
right?
Dude, if I woke up like from a nap and looked like Gandalf the White, that'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
Usually when I wake up from a nap, I look like Gollum.
You look like Theoden before Gandalf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gandalf saved him.
I do like how his hair just
shrinks
disappears. Just like these like scraggly hairs just.
Oh, incredible.
Oh, Theoden.
I think they did that take by take too.
Did they?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think like
a little bit of makeup.
I think they just slowly redid his makeup, and then did
it still looks
the
pretty good when they did it. Yeah,
shot sort of thing. I don't think they did that CGI or like because I think they just did a practical effect and then just faded it essentially. I could be wrong, but. But yeah, that is also a very good effect.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So
absolutely stunning.
Yeah, stunning, marvelous. It looks beautiful. Great movie. Helm's Deep. I think I wanted to roll back on the kind of hopelessness and then the hopefulness of like the last charge, the last ride of the Rohirrim. I think that the score
Ride
and
Out With
soundtrack.
Me, yeah.
Ride out with me to the Red Dawn. Blah 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 blah. Just like, and then it's amazing. And then like Gandalf and like all hope is lost.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And then Gandalf comes in with the
With
Rohirrim.
Omar and
And it's just like,
Or Elrond.
it's just like, there is always going to be good. There's always going to be good in this world, Mr. Frodo.
That's right.
And it's just like, that's the imagery of like good winning, like the light winning, the just winning, and just like the darkness will always be defeated. And there's gonna be a moment where you are in your darkness, you are in like your suffering and your pain. It's like it's gonna look like the worst thing possible.
Yep.
But the light is gonna come. Gandalf's gonna come riding up on his horse and come on down.
Speaking of darkness, this is like one of the realest scenes between these two. I mean, like,
Gandalf and Theoden are talking about his son's death.
His son's dead, and like no parent should have to bury their child. And just his reaction at like, as a father of a 2-year-old now, like I was like, oh my god.
Oh yeah, do you think have you seen this before Graham? Like after Graham has been born?
Yeah, when he was really young and I was on the maternity or paternity leave, I'm pretty sure I worked my way through it. Like, because I was like, this might be the last time when I can watch Lord of the Rings before, before
you're showing it to him for the first time.
Before I'm showing it to him for the first time, which may be, 10 years. Otherwise, I'm like up until like 11, 12 o'clock after he fell asleep watching the movies because I'm like, I just need it. And so it's been a balance, but so I'm pretty sure I went through all of them, and I had just gotten the extended editions, and I was like starving to go through those too. So I did that. And like the extended editions just add so much. I rewatched the extended edition of Two Towers right before meeting with you guys tonight, and man, there's just so much more emotions, great dialogue that they had to cut, and like at times I'm like, I know you cut that, but you couldn't have just left that in. Like this would have made this scene like so much more impactful, or this scene so much more impactful, or this or that. But I totally understand like why and where they cut it to. But I didn't mean to interrupt the light and darkness of Helm's Deep,
basically
but that was such a real
that
point.
Scene is amazing.
I was watching it, I'm like, I'm gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about that.
I also like though that like magic isn't like super overpowered in this. Like Gandalf gets to do some cool stuff, and sometimes can feel a little like, oh wow, like if they didn't have Gandalf. But even when he has to show up to Helm's Deep, he can't do it alone. Like if he were just to ride down on his horse, he might be able to,
take a lot.
He could probably take out like 100 orcs, and I wouldn't be like, that's unbelievable.
But he's done.
Like there's thousands, and he's got the riders, and like there still needs to be like, again, like I just can't keep beating this drum. It's like, if this is like the importance of like why everyone was needed to make this happen. Like if anyone decided to be selfish and go, I can't be a part of this, that could actually have ended in failure. Like
Absolutely.
Gandalf made the willing sacrifice to be like, I need to keep everyone safe. So even if that means I have to die, but was rewarded with being like a true like savior in that regard, so he gets to come back. But like, man, if Gandalf was truly off the map, that would have been a huge blow to the Fellowship, I think, for real. Like, and so I just love that it constantly reiterates. It's like, yes, it would be nice if the king could return. Yes, it would be nice if the wizard would do it, like, but everyone is still just it. There is a need for everyone. So they just do a really good job of making everyone essential without like making it unbelievable. Because like if Gandalf was too powerful, the argument would always be, why didn't Gandalf just do this? Why didn't Gandalf do this? Why didn't he do this? Because he's the cheat code, And I feel like they did a good job.
There's no Captain Marvel flying in and
you can blow up ships. Interesting. That would have been nice to know. Like, could you have done that in any other scenario? Since you've been here forever. So I just think they did a good job of grounding it while still letting him be powerful.
Yeah.
And I honestly, when he fights, like his first move isn't magic. It's always sword or just to nail people with his staff.
Dude.
Does some bow staff fighting and whatnot, which is legit. So like that's even his style of fighting. Like the only time I really see him do magic while fighting is maybe with the Balrog, and that might be because he's a magical entity as well. So I don't know, maybe there's some
he
lore
never
behind
escalates the fight, essentially, is
Right.
what you're saying.
He's like, I can handle this all with my
Yeah.
staff and bow or sword.
For sure.
Man.
I think this is a movie we love.
I think this is a movie we love. Anything else that would kind of wrap up The Two Towers?
Oh man.
Any closing thoughts, I would say, for one of the greatest movies in all cinematic history?
I mean, I could probably keep talking about it because we're only halfway through the movie.
Yeah, still got another hour.
It's like, I totally didn't realize how long we'd be talking, but yeah, it's just an excellent collection of just adaptation to film. And like I saw the films before I read the books, and like I was fine with that. Like I even if I never touched the book, like I would still love the film.
Oh yeah.
Like if I didn't dive deep into the lore and all that, I would still love the films.
It is amazing how kind of they are just set apart from each other. Even like reading the book, I'm like, oh, it is a kind of like a different thing in itself. Like obviously the themes and everything overarch, but like the movies are just so perfect in their own way, and the book is just so perfect in its own way that it's just interesting to have them as separate entities, but being the same story and being both great and masters in their own class. Sorry, I hit the mic again. Good. Sorry,
you're
audience. I'm slapping you.
I think it's cool too to like pre-movies being made. I think you would classify someone who likes Lord of the Rings as probably a little nerdy.
Yes.
Because of like the fantasy tropes or whatever. But when it gets like Oscar nominated for like being
everything,
like
didn't it get everything?
I think it got like 11.
It got,
right? It got like, which is like usually the highest. I think.
Until Return of the King got 13.
Oh, okay, that's what it was.
Gosh,
I think it was, or either it was 9 and 11 or 11 to 13, something like that.
Yeah. It's just cool when like a story is just so good that it doesn't matter like what its fandom is, doesn't matter how many biblical undertones are in this. Like it's such a good story that no one can watch this and go, yeah, this is bad. Like it's a like horrible writing. And
Just
it's like,
objectively good.
It's just it's too good that it went past more than just its fandom. So it's cool that when stuff like this happens, we get to be a part of it, like on both sides, where it's like, this is nerdy. It's almost like this is what everyone's D&D like fantasy is. Like they want to go on an adventure like Frodo and Sam. They want to do it on a board game table. We have Lord of the Rings to thank us for like putting that in our hearts. And then other people are just like, this is just a great movie. So it's like one of the best movies ever made. And so it's cool that it can be both.
From a technical aspect, it's great. From a nerd aspect, it's great.
Yeah. So it's just cool when things like that happen. So.
And then too, like even some of the negatives that could be said about like just the Lord of the Rings in general is like it is slow. It is like kind of like, oh, there's a lot of moments where they're walking around. It's like the moments where they're walking around are like beautiful still. Just technically like
absolutely
the scenery and even like them just having this conversation here. It's just like there's so much being said between them, and there's the growth of characters of like, and just like it is all interesting. And then you get a moment of like, oh, some action, and then you like swap back and forth between characters. Like everything, it has this pace to it where it doesn't feel dry. It's like, oh wait, there are like 20 minutes of like scenic shots or whatever. Right. But it's like that doesn't feel like 20 minutes when you're in between all this other stuff.
For sure.
So it just creates this epic.
It's got a little bit of everything.
Oh, here's a good scene with Gollum
talking
Smeagol.
to himself. Oh,
this is the split scene.
Oh, it's so
Yeah,
and
where they
Andy
just do different
Serkis
shots.
just kills it.
Oscar. This is always so sad to me because or this is the part where they split and it's like, oh, it's Smeagol now. He's actually gonna make a turn and he's gonna be okay. And then oh, it's so sad when he gets turned in and gets captured by Faramir's guys, and he blames Frodo and Sam. It's just oh, he was right
so
there.
close,
Oh, you just
yeah.
don't understand. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Smeagol.
But I mean, what a cool physical representation too of Frodo and Sam literally just even looking at Gollum, you're going I don't know if I can trust this guy. Kind of a little shady, and even they are but he could still be helpful. They see that everyone inherently has a good thing in them, and so it's just beautiful. Even from the audience standpoint, we're guys, you can't trust them, and they're they know that, but there's still a part of them that sees good in everyone, and so they're willing to put their chips on redemption.
Yeah.
And so
I can't recall in the theatrical release, but in the extended edition, after when they're leaving Osgiliath, and they're talking with Faramir, yeah, there you go. And they're at he's asking Gollum which road are you taking, sort of thing. And they have an entire confrontation there and everything, but they're going through the sewers to get out of the city, and there's a moment where Sam is hey, just so you know, Frodo was trying to save your life and do good, at the little pond or whatever, and that's the heart-crushing moment, because it's now you got Sam on your side.
Sam hated you for a
right,
while.
It's you got Sam encouraging you and being giving you the Sam pep talk right now, and moments later you see him just completely turn, and it's just oh my gosh, you're so close.
We have to mention that part at the end where the talk of Sam and Frodo, of the story of do you think they're telling about stories about us, Mr. Frodo, about the brave Frodo and he taking the ring to Mordor? And it's that whole speech is great. That's Oh, and we got the
are we about to get to
potatoes.
potato scene? Perhaps the most iconic
Stupid fat
scene in
hobbit.
the entire
There it is.
trilogy. Some would say.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know about that, but they did make a jingle out of this.
You literally have a tattoo of a potato, right?
That's not.
Oh, it's not a. Oh, I thought that was the
That's not.
reference.
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
Tree on one side,
it's a
potato
tree on
the
one
other.
side of the
Potato on the
potato.
Potato.
Boil and mash them, put them in my skin.
Oh man.
Well, I mean, here's the truth, ladies and gentlemen.
that's
You've
fantastic.
probably heard about Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
And potatoes.
And potatoes and trees. But we're here to tell you you should definitely check it out.
The Two Towers.
It's been a little bit, just over 2 decades, but we love it.
This little
And
gem.
we think you will too. Not no, that doesn't work. Hold on. And so we thank you for joining us, not us, United. See, I can be all
You did
business too, Michael.
well done.
Well done. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Oh,
anytime.
yet again.
You're the man.
Anytime.
You got a third one coming up.
Yeah. Awesome.
We're ready for it.
I love being here.
Built in. You're
All
in.
right.
Goodbye, everybody.
You've just listened to Not Us United. You can find us under Not Us United on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Please leave us a review and consider subscribing to our podcast. You can reach out for future podcast topic suggestions at notusunitedpod@gmail.com.